Okay. So this is for the Envisioning Sustainability class, and we are going to use Blender OSM to create a digital terrain and then bring it into Unity for presentation in AltSpace. So the first thing, of course, that you need to do, and it's covered in many other videos, is in Preferences, you need to have the add-on, which is called Blender OSM. And it's right here. And if you don't have it, then you need to install it from the zip file, which you should have somewhere. I don't know where mine is, but get it online and install it, and it'll show up here. And when you click on it, you'll enable it. And when you do that, over here on the right, you'll get the Blender OSM drop-down menu. When you don't click on it, that disappears. You also have to make sure, and this is also covered in many tutorials on Blender OSM, that you've set the directory to store the files. I use a external drive for this, and I then let's see if I can there. I will put it in Unity project. Let's see where I want to put it. I should think that I would have it in Unity projects, and then Rosebud AltSpace. That's where I'm going to put it. And then I'm going to create a folder in here for Blender OSM files, and accept that folder. And then you have a place to store it. That's critical. You have to have a place to store the OpenStreetMap and terrain files. Then you need a token for either ArcGIS or Mapbox. I use Mapbox. I made a free account with Mapbox. So when I sign in there, it gives me my tokens, and I have a Blender project token I made about a month ago. And I copy that long token there, and then I paste it into here. And then I will save these preferences, and that should let me start working in here. So let me just check and make sure that I'm broadcasting properly, that people can hear me. Let's see. Okay, so it is working. So now what I do is I want to import first thing, do not import OpenStreetMap. That's the first thing it'll default to. What you want to import is you want to import a terrain. That's the first thing you want to do. And when you go to import a terrain, it will give you nothing. So you need to go up to select. When you select, it'll open up a website, and that's where you're going to get your coordinates from, latitude and longitude. So you go to search, and I'm going to search for Camp here in Germany. There it is. And this is the area that I've been working at. And we go to a satellite image. And there's the greenhouse. Okay. This is where I spent last weekend. Some good imagery there. Not so good there. Let me make this bigger. And with this image in mind, I guess this is what I want to get this extent. Then you can show selection rectangle and make the rectangle the size you want for this. See, the problem is if I make the extent any bigger, then I lose resolution, although this is the entire area here. Let me see if I try to get that whole extent, including that bit of the terrain, and then I zoom in. Yeah, I can get a clearer image. We'll see how clear the image comes in, because then you copy those over here, where it says copy, and when you go back in here, you say paste. Boom. And those coordinates, 51.48 and 7.06 and 7.07, 51.49, those are the coordinates of that terrain. And so then you say import. and you wait, and the terrain should come in. You see it's spinning. So wait for the terrain to come in. Always start with the terrain. And it'll seem like after it stops spinning that nothing happened, but that's because the terrain came in way up there. Okay. So let me click over here on the right on the cube and hit period and come back to the cube. We don't need that cube, so I'm going to delete it. That's the end of the cube. You can see there is a terrain here, and when you hit delete, nothing, when you hit the period key, it disappears, and that's because of something called clipping. To stop the clipping, you need to go into View, and you'll see under View, see OSM is here, that's where you're doing your work, but there's another tab here called View, and it's going to have a clip start and a clip end, and the clip end is not big enough. So what you want to do is make it bigger. You can see if I drag, I make it bigger and bigger and bigger until I get the entire view at 1,339 meters. Sometimes we just put in 10,000 and then we get a lot more than we actually need. Clipping is to save memory, but since this thing is only 1,330, let's say I did 1,500, then you can see it clips out the rest, but it does keep until I go that far out. So that's why making a bigger terrain, maybe to 5,000, let's see what that does. There. That lets me zoom out to about there and then zoom in. You can see it will clip when I get too far away, but that's sufficient for now. And you see the terrain has bumps in it. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is go back to OSM and now bring in your image overlay. That's what you set when you had in your preferences, when you said Mapbox Access Token or ArcGIS Access Token, depending on which one you used. I'm using Mapbox. That's the one that's going to put that terrain over there. So overlay is not going to be ArcGIS Satellite. For me, it's going to be Mapbox Satellite. That's what I want to come in. And now I'm going to, so if I increase the number of tiles, well, I'll keep those tiles. Let's see what happens with the default. So down here it downloads the tile image. And let's see if it makes a decent map. So, 40 out of 60, so we wait a bit. And then it brings it in. And again, you see nothing. Well, that's because you're not in the right render mode. This is the mesh render here. This is the, what do they call this? Viewport shading. This one here is 3D material preview. This one here is the solid mode. So go to the material and let it think. And it should have brought in a terrain. That's strange that it's not in there. Let me look at this one here, under render. Nothing. Interesting. Well, we have to see what happens. Huh. Now, is that because there's no light? Maybe the light is underneath and you can't see it, so let me move the light up. No. Okay, that's very mysterious to me. What if I use the Mapbox Streets? The import? Nothing came in from that. What if I use ArcGIS Satellite? Yeah, it says it doesn't have that token. So this is very bizarre. Maybe Germany hasn't implemented that. Let me try something else here. Let me go to Edit and go to Preferences, and then we get the ArcGIS thing here. I should have a oops. Well, I'm not able to get that. That's interesting. So what if I use a different extent? Maybe I went too big with this. Let me go back to this and change my selection rectangle there, and let me bring it up a little bit and make it smaller. Let's see what Germany is going to give me. try that. And copy those coordinates and go back and go to terrain, or even I guess to the whole thing, and paste those in. It's a different coordinate set. Let me first get rid of that. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to import this terrain now. Okay, something's wrong. Just keeps pasting in terrains. Alright, let's try this again. Terrain, import, and we see nothing. Okay, that's very strange. In that case, let me quit Blender. Sometimes there are problems with it. Let me start Blender again. Let me open up OpenStreetMap. Let me paste those coordinates in. Let me import the terrain. There we go. Came in again. Again, I don't need the cube, but this time I'll leave it for whatever reason. I don't know why. Now let me go in and import the image overlay and take it from the map box satellite and save the overlay to the file, import. And if this doesn't work, I'm just simply going to freak out. There it is. All right. I don't know what happened. Sometimes you have to restart Blender. But there's this file. There's the place, Bonnekamp in Germany. And with that in place, I have the place I'm going to work on. All right. So I'm going to use this as my base when I go into Unity and then start building things from there. But I'll also have it as a reference in Blender. So if I want to try to do some mesh modeling, for example, I can, for example, take this greenhouse and hit the 7 key and then shift and move over, and let me also rotate this to make it easier to draw. And now I can go in and add a mesh and add a cylinder. And let me move that cylinder. Let me locate it. It's down here somewhere in the middle of the cube. So a G and a Z will lift that cylinder up. And G and Z to bring it higher. There we go. And now I'm going to move that cylinder over to here. I'm going to rotate the cylinder in the x-axis by 90 degrees. There we go. I'm going to scale that in the y-axis like so, and then move it up. I'm going to scale it in the x-axis like so, and I want to scale it in the z-axis and then make that cylinder so that if I move it down in z, I get a greenhouse. And I think it's also, if I look at this on this angle or on this angle, I'll have to rotate it a bit because it's not, the ground isn't even. So to make it look even, I rotate it like this. And then when you're on the ground, you feel like your greenhouse is done well. All right, then the next, I'm going to save this. Save this as Bonnekamp. And Blender open source. No, we want to save this as Unity projects and Rosebud alt space trial, and then I'm going to make a new folder for Bonnekamp files Germany, and then open that up and save our blend. Now this cylinder is going to be called greenhouse, but of course it needs to be cut in half. And there's two ways to cut it in half. There's several different ways to cut it in half. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it again along the grid line, so it's easy to see. I'm going to go tab into this. There we go. And let me hide this rest of the terrain. There we go. And where did the terrain go? It comes in about there. So at about the halfway point, I'm going to click and drag. But all that's going to do is select 1/2 of the points. The other points on the other side are not selected. So that's not ideal. So what you have to do is hit the Z key and go into wireframe, or you can go to wireframe from here. And then when you select it, it will select everything as if it's transparent. You see that whole thing is selected, and it looks like it's halfway. And then I'm going to hit X and delete those vertices, and I get this instead. So now on the terrain, I have a greenhouse. And it probably is worth taking this and selecting all of it, and let me hit extrude in Z. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Sorry, E for extrude and then Z, and then make it, I want to actually go grab it in Z and move it down to give it some thickness. Alright. And then what I have is a much thicker thing, which is good. And then when I look at it on the terrain, yeah, I have what's the start of a greenhouse. Now, we did note that it was needing to be rotated on the landscape just a bit, so that when you're on it, you're actually walking through it at an even level. Alright, so there's part of the greenhouse, just to set up something. And you can do all that kind of modeling if you like. Alright, so with that, and I save, I need to export all this so I can use it in Unity. Now there's a couple of ways to do that. You can select everything, or just hit A for select all. Of course, I do not want the cube, so let me delete the cube. Nor do I need the camera, nor do I need the light. Alright, let me save this. So I've got this terrain and I've got this greenhouse, and you can go to export and export it as an FBX file. And again, find your folder. Oops. Any projects. Spread alt space, and then go to Bonacampu and export the FBX file. Alright. So that should save the terrain. And now we need to open up Unity. So we go to Unity Hub, and there's a very specific version of Unity that we have to use with alt space, and that has to be 2020.3.18. None of these other versions, the most recent version or the older versions, none of them work except for 2020.3.18. So that's the one you're going to want to do. And I'm going to keep this in the Rosebud alt space trial. That's my project. So I'm going to use the same project, but you can create a new project as long as it's in 2020.3.18. I don't want to make this a new scene in the project because I want to be able to teleport between places. So, wait for it. It takes a while. I guess while it's doing that, I could make another level to see where this sits in Germany that I'm not going to export. That might be interesting. If I were to go to, oh, you know what? I didn't do buildings. I wanted to show you that. You can go then, after you do terrain and image overlay, you can do OpenStreetMap and get 3D buildings in. And then looks like the roofs here are gabbled roofs. So I'm gonna do roof shape, not flat, but gobbled. And let me import that. And it's telling me that there's a problem. A device, what is it saying? It didn't like something that it saw. Oh, there it goes. Alright, so the only buildings it looks like that are even available are buildings that are off my map over here, and then it's got this vegetation that's supposed to be forest in there, and it's looking really funky. So probably don't even want that, so I'm going to delete that forest. This piece of forest here that's vegetation that's funky. There's a road here and a road here. You can see those roads and they don't seem to match up at all. So that was a bust. And maybe these houses fit somewhere, but they seem to be rotated in the wrong direction. So there's something building there. There's something wrong with this. And so yeah, it didn't really work. Profile roads, residential roads. Yeah, well, so that's the OpenStreetMap, and it didn't work out well. So maybe by now my Unity is open. Or is it? It's not yet open. It's still opening. Let's look and see. Where did it go? So I said I wanted to open this. Maybe it crashed. Sometimes that can happen, and maybe by this point I should close Blender. And see. Let's see what it does. If it doesn't work out, then I'm simply going to create a new project, because maybe it's bogged down because the Rosebud project is so big. But it does have all my assets in it, so it's nice to be able to use common assets. We will see, it's certainly taking a long time. Failed to load window layout. Load default layout. If contains custom windows and compile layers, load default layout. Well, there's a new version of the editor available. No, we don't want that. Skip that new version. We have to use this one, 2020.3.18. And industrial props are in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new scene. It'll be a basic built-in scene. And I'm going to title that scene, if it'll let me. Save scene as. I'm going to call it here under scenes. I'm going to call this account. Alright, so that's Bonacamper. And what I'll do now is I have couple things I can do. One, I can create a failed to load window layout. Oh, it is. I can create a in my assets folder. I can create a folder for the camp her assets, and then in that folder I can import a new asset, which would be the Bonacamper files. So there is the Bonacamper FBX, for example, and let's see how that works. So bringing that in, maybe pretty big. It's substantial, which is why it's taking so long, maybe. Let me see. Alright. And there it is. You can see the greenhouse. The problem is it doesn't have a texture. And sometimes when that happens, then we have to edit the material. Base map, select material. You have to create a material. So there's a terrain material, and there's something called overlay. I don't see, yeah, it doesn't have a shader on it. So sometimes that is not the best way to go about things. And maybe what I should do, because I didn't get the right terrain, is delete that and instead bring in the Blender file. Although I may have the same problem with the terrain, because if I bring the Blender file in, there it is, it just still doesn't have any terrain on it. And I think, when we go to camera prefab, how did we do this before? Because this should have a terrain component, and the terrain should have a shader, and the shader should come in. And if it doesn't, then we have a problem, Houston, because we have the terrain but we don't have the shader. The terrain needs to be made with edit render pipeline, universal pipeline, upgrade project. No, it's not seeing anything there. So I've got to, I guess, bring in the image. So I need to go back to Blender and open up the blend. There it is. And take this and go to UV editing. And the thing is called overlay. And I'm going to name this Bonacamp SAT, SAT for the satellite picture. And then I'm going to, I have to somehow save this picture. So oh, and is it this that I'm? I suppose it's mapping just that section, and that's the section we really want, but I can say save as, and maybe say on a camp, there's also one called overlay, so it's already there. We'll just try it. PNG, bonacamp.png, save as image. It's in Unity projects. So maybe what I need to do here is simply import an asset and find oh, that's interesting. So where was it? Hold on. Where was this? This is saved as, and the folder is in Blender OSM files texture. Blender OSM files texture. OSM files texture. So in here, it should be Blender OSM files texture. There it is. Alright, so either one, and they're identical. So I'm going to go like this, then map that onto here, if it'll let me. There, I'm supposed to do that. Weird. Okay, what the heck? Stop that. Why are you not letting me see what I need to see? Is it because we need a light? No, there is a directional light. The directional light is above, so it can't be that. And why are you not letting me see it? Because the overlay needs this on top of it. Maybe I have to create a new material. Create a material and call it terrain component comp. And let me change the color of this. Make it green. And then put that on there. That turns it green. Then turn this onto it. Why are you not letting me do this? You should be able to go onto this terrain. No. Certainly doesn't like that picture. If you refresh, it's weird because that you should just be able to take any picture, because even if I were to import as an asset any, let me try the overlay. No, it's not letting it do anything. Because I would think that if I were to import as an asset any picture from pictures, like even a picture of my RV, and bring it in. No, it's not letting that one be brought in either. And that's a JPEG. How funny. Base map. You can change the color all you want, but where do you bring in the image? They've changed something. Because if you go to standard, it's still not letting us cover that up. That's not doing anything. So that's not working. Terrain. Standard. Universal render pipelines, what we're supposed to do. And it's supposed to be terrain. Lit. But it's still not doing anything. So I don't understand this new thing that they've done. It's really weird. I'm not getting it. So I go to materials. Oh, maybe it's there. Let me see if I bring Onacamp Who into there, and now drag it up. That's an overlay. That's not an overlay. Huh. That's really weird. There's a material there, but it's supposed to have the map on it. Edit. No, I want to edit that. Shader. Alt space. Tune shade. Doesn't do a darn thing. So there's something going on here with the legacy shaders. And it used to be that you just dropped the picture on there and it showed up. And now unlit white material was not upgraded. There's no upgraded convert unit color shader to selected pipeline, whatever the heck that means. If I do it on the greenhouse, yeah. That's weird. I don't know if it's... Huh. Well, I'll be darned. Well, this is the point at which I try to check on the internet, and I go using PNG as texture for Unity material, making pictures into a material. Make a new material, then under main maps, you see albedo with a gray square, drag your picture into this square. Well, I'll be dark. Base map. Well, that's right away. Put the image in your assets folder, go to create material, click on the material in your assets, large gray square next to the tiling and offset settings. Large gray square. Click on the material in your assets, that's your large gray square next to the tiling and offset settings. Large gray square next to the tiling and offset settings. Texture, select. Well, okay, I did, but I don't see anything. I don't see anything. None, texture. Select. Alt space, tune, I don't want that. Let. I'm very confused, and I'm sure you are too, so this isn't really helping any of us. It seems like it would go on, but it doesn't. And I'm not sure why. Tiling, offset. It all has to do with this universal pipeline. Importing textures. How do you create? Import your image by dropping it in your project window. Select the image once in the project. Make sure it's set to texture type or texture in your inspector. Alright, so let's go select the image and right click and say, oh here, it is set to texture type default. So make sure that it is set to texture. Create a new material. Next you want to assign your image to this material, dragging and dropping your image onto your newly created material. In newer versions you'll need to drop it onto the square to the left of albedo. It's not letting me drop it anywhere. It's really strange because we should be able to drop any image we want onto it. I mean, even the tree branches should go if we wanted them to, we should be able to drop the tree branches, and yet it's not showing up as tree branches. There's like something very strange going, because even if I drop the tree branches on here, I get that darkness. And I wonder if I do it as a, if I make a, create a 3D object, if I make a plane, for example, and I make that plane bigger, and then I drop the overlay on it, yeah, it comes out black, no matter which picture I use. Now, what is the reason for that? Is it because I'm not looking at it right? Is it because I have a directional light in the scene. It's there. And that doesn't seem to be affecting it. And if I move that light, or maybe I make another light. So what if I create another light and I do an, I don't know, point light. Yeah, it's not doing anything right. And that's really bizarre. Because if I put that there, then it doesn't let me put that map there. It's almost like it's got this weird idea that that shader is standard. So it's this whole, it's the shader that's causing the problem. Because that one there, now if I drop, I can't drop that on there. I can't drop that on there. Yeah, it's doing some weird thing. Although here, when you look at this, it is mapped onto the cube. Oops. So look at that there, down here. That overlay has come in suddenly. Oh, that is bizarre. Oh, okay, I have no idea what just happened here, but now it's working. How strange. I have no idea what happened. Alright, so I can get rid of this. I don't need it. I can get rid of the tree branches one. I have no idea what's happening here, but it came in. Maybe it just had to think for a long time. I wish I could tell you what happened, but there it is. And as for the greenhouse, well, that's got its own color, so I don't need that material there. What I want to do is create a material and call this greenhouse, and then on that greenhouse material I can change the color and throw this onto there. Okay. Alright, so I have, wow, after all that, I really cannot say why that happened the way it did. But now the next thing to do is to start putting in some things in here. But before you do, each time you should check with Alt space. So let me show you how you do that. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to call up altvr.com. I'm going to sign in. I'm going to go to Worlds. I'm going to go to My Worlds. I'm going to go into My Universe. And now I'm going to create a world. And the name is going to be Permaculture Garden, Germany. And then I'm going to exclude it from search and public listings right now. And that's all I'm going to do. Now I need to use a template for this. And I haven't created the template yet. So this is where things get funny. So you need to create a template. And to do that, you go to templates. So I'm going to right click and open that in a new tab. And I'm going to create I'm going to create a template. And I'm going to call that template Bonacamp template. And I have an image I can choose, it's fine. I can choose the image from it's in terrain, I think. Or Blender OSM files, there it is. Texture, okay. So that's going to be the thing, and then you create this template. Okay. Let's see what's happening here. Why is it not doing anything? So it should create the template. Oops. There we go. Okay, so the template has been created, and there's the picture of it, and it's got nothing in it. So that's the template I'm going to use. So now I'm going to go back to my world, and I use a template. So let me refresh this, because it probably won't show up. There it is, the Bonacamp template is the one, I'm the owner of it. I'm going to select that. I'm going to make this world called Bonacamp Permaculture Garden Essen, Germany. And then I will use the same file for that. And I'm going to make it excluded from search engines right now, but I'm using, you can see the blue line around it. I'm using that as my template, and I'm creating a world. But there's nothing in the template yet. And so here's how it's going to work. So I'm going to create my world, and if I were to go into my world right now, there'd be nothing in it. So what you do is you come into here and you take this whole world, and you open up Alt Space VR. Now to get this in, you had to follow the directions, and those directions would be at creating a world in Alt VR, and Microsoft Learn is the place, and it'll tell you all the things you need to do. Select the template, that's where we are, enter now button, and then share your world. But there's world building, getting started, creating content, and getting started with the world editor, which should be there. Okay. No, that's not the one we want. That's world editor. What is it? Basic world building, managing your worlds, getting started with world building. It's somewhere you have to do Unity on here. World building toolkit. There it is. Okay. There it goes. Okay, so you have the Alt VR uploader, and you're supposed to select Universal Render Pipeline, which we had, and it says you have to use 2020.3.18 from Unity Hub, and it tells you how to use that. And then it says you have to put in the get the Alt Space VR uploader. So it tells you to go to Window, Package Manager, after you have downloaded the package manager from here, the latest Unity uploader, and you click on that, and then it downloads it, and it's a tar file down here, and then you're going to open it up by going into Unity and opening up the add package from tarball. So it tells you all that in this, which is called World Building Toolkit Unity Uploader from Microsoft Learn. So once you've done that, then you're going to have up here Alt Space VR, and it says kits or templates. We talked in class about how templates are the set piece of the world and kits are the props. So I go to templates, and then I need to sign in. And then I refresh my template list. And then I'm supposed to select a template, and I've created one called Bonnekamp Her template. Why do I have two? I do not know. Oh lordy, why are there two templates here? There should not be two templates. So let me see. Template Bonnekamp Her, my templates. There's that one. Yeah, and then there should be more templates. Here's my templates. I have two templates for some reason, and I don't know why. And they're identical. So I gotta delete one of them. And I'm gonna delete this one here. I have no idea why we're getting all these problems. Anyway, now there's just one Bonnekamp Her template. So let me go back to Unity and let me refresh the template list. And now choose a template, and there's just one Bonnekamp Her template. Okay. So I need to choose a Unity file. And the Unity file that I'm choosing is this one here. You can open in browser, or you can click on this and find it. And the scene that I want to use, if I say create a new template, I guess you could have created a new template in here. I didn't think of that. Exclude all from build, include all from build. Okay, why isn't it letting me just take this? Why do I have to choose a Unity file? It wants me to choose a Unity file. Alright, Bonnekamp Her doesn't match their scenes. Where's my scenes? Assets, Bonnekamp Her assets, scenes. There's Bonnekamp Her Unity. I guess that's what it wants. And then I want it for Windows, Android, and Mac. But for right now, I'm just going to build it on Windows because I want to test it. So say build and upload. I do want to save it. So if you have this problem with textures that used up most of this video, I'm sorry, I still don't understand why it works when it works and doesn't when it doesn't. There's very frustrating moments. So let's see. We now have it in there. Did it build and upload? Still building and uploading. So let it do its thing. It seems like build and upload is complete. Okay, it's a very simple thing. It just has a greenhouse. Now when we go to the Bonnekamp world, if we enter now, we should have the terrain. Let's see. It's like watching grass grow or paint dry. These things take a long time. So now we're going into Alt Space. And there it is. Okay, enter it. Okay, enter. Please don't mess up. Alright, what do we got? We got all of nothing, eh? Alright, something went wrong. So that didn't work. And I don't understand why. It's like something falling through space, and it may be that this template is too high relative to where the character would come in. So probably the thing to do is to set the Y position to 0 and maybe even lower. Let's make the Y position -10. Bring it down like that. And the X position should be 0 and the Z position should be 0. And that way we should fall on that when we come in, but it means that we're going to have to reload this. So I'm going to save it. And this is called Bonnecamp. And then I'm going to build it again by taking that template and include bundle, user per platform, Bonnecamp Unity. Let's try that, or test build. We do test build. It makes it disappear. So this tests to see if it's working. It doesn't put it in alt space. It says build complete. Oh, there were no errors. So let's build and upload. And let's see. And we'll go back to alt space and go to worlds and my worlds, and let's see if we enter. Aha! No, that didn't do anything. That's weird. Is it frozen? Okay, I'm still not getting anywhere. Oh, there's the greenhouse. See the greenhouse? Whoa! So the greenhouse is way up there. And it looks kind of upside down. Alright. That's not terrible. That's not terrible. I don't know if this is, if I have to re-enter. Let me try re-entering because it may have been loaded and I just didn't know it. So let's go back to alt space and try it again. There's one thing that you will note is that it says what the template is. If we go to diagnostics, is it any good? Let's see. Alright, let's try it. Oh, there it is. You saw it, but it fell down. Yeah, you can kind of see it. It's so weird. It's even... I saw it like just at the edge of reality. So something's wrong here. And I need to know where to make my spawn place. So, use per platform, collapse all, create new template. It's funny because you have to know where the plane is supposed to be. Now I can continue to move this down because I don't know where the spawn point is for the character in this. And then when I save this, also if he doesn't, like if it's in the wrong place, then we're kind of screwed. So let's save this project again, and then let's grab it again. We know it's the right one because we saw the greenhouse floating. Oh, and the other thing is I have to make the floor collidable. So let's make this add component and then put in the physics and make it a rigid body, and then let's also make it a rigid body. It needs to be static, right? Use gravity. Don't use gravity. Not for that. The greenhouse, yes, the greenhouse should have a rigid body, and it uses gravity because it falls on that. Then terrain, add component. If we make it collidable, that would be by putting physics in and using a terrain collider. Maybe that's what we needed to do. Let's see what that does. Because he's falling under the greenhouse, we saw that. So if we do that, and now we build and upload, we should also see when we do this, if we go to the actual template, which is here, and refresh that, when we look at this, we can see that it, oh, okay, it was for PC and it was less than a minute ago that it was put in there. So that's good. Less than a minute ago. So let's go back to the world and enter. And see what we see. Nope, didn't work. Oh, there it is. Oh, look at that. Okay. So now it's way too low because we keep dying when we fall down. And the greenhouse is... Where's the greenhouse? Is the greenhouse falling with it? I guess it is. I guess that is the... Or maybe not. Okay, well, it keeps dying. But at least we know something about it. So great. So then let's go back to Blender and let's actually move this back up. The whole thing. There it is. But let's move it to the Y position of 0. As I said, maybe -5. And the greenhouse is there. The greenhouse is a rigid body that uses gravity. Terrain, maybe the greenhouse fell through. So maybe we make the greenhouse not use gravity. And let's save it. And then let us upload it again. At least that's more encouraging. We've seen some hope, right? And let's my worlds. Let's try to enter again. Yeah. There's the greenhouse falling. Right, so he's definitely falling through the world. So that's that same problem that we had. And that means that it's got to be lower than that. Maybe make it negative... I don't know, -15? This is maddening that one has to keep doing this. Yes, save it. We know that he was above it, so we were right about the 0 on the 0 here, but for some reason he falls right onto it. Which is quite annoying, figuring out where it's supposed to be. Oh, there's the greenhouse again. And he falls away from it. So he's starting out much lower. And I can only think, well, how far down do you go? Do you go down to negative 30 and try that? You've really got to get this stage right, and then the rest is gravy. You add different components each time and keep uploading, although sometimes you add a component that crashes everything. So you're really trying out build and upload. It should be it. Build as upload is complete. And then settings, re-enter the world. There he is. Oh, and he fell through. Look at that. So why did he fall through? Interesting. And does the greenhouse is flying away. So he falls through, the greenhouse continues up. So I thought my collision was sufficient. Add component. Maybe I have to make a component for the whole thing. So it's going to be rigid body and a terrain physics, a terrain collider, and then save it, and then build and upload again. Just keep trying this out until it works. I think if you see me blundering through, then you know when you get stuck that you're not the only one. And I've had success before, so I know that it will work. Alright, build and upload. Start simple, start with just the terrain. And then it says complete. And then go back to here and enter. Oops, we already have a version of it that's open. I need to close that. Come along. Here we go. Really? Alright, let me have my mouse back then. Oh, and he still falls through. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on fly because I want to know what the heck's happening here. Settings, online status, input, fly, because I can't stand that I can't fly. Now that I'm flying, everything looks fine. So I fly through, but I should be able to walk around the world. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And this is a weird looking greenhouse. How weird. So there's something wrong with the greenhouse for sure. But at least I know the terrain is there. And it looks like it's somewhat near the right size. But when I try to zap it, there's no foundation here. That is not a proper terrain. So, what to do there? Well, somehow when this terrain came in, it didn't come in with a floor. And I'm really confused about that because it would seem that this is the that this is the right mesh. If I go back to physics and I say, I have rigid body on there, box collider, I could try. I guess I was using a terrain collider. If I use a box collider, edit collider, where's the collider? Oh, that's the box. I mean, one can, oh no. So I don't know if you go to edit the collider, so maybe I take out the terrain collider. Reset, remove component. I mean, now I have a box collider on there. Terrain collider, I'll delete. But hard to say. Because if this doesn't work, then I'm going to create a plane or a cube. Because we shouldn't be falling through the world. And now, the box collider says it's complete. Go back here, enter. Actually, we already are in it. We just need to turn off fly. And we go right through, but that's because we have to re-enter the space. And that would be general re-enter. Once it's uploaded. Let's see what happens. Oh, it still goes right through the floor. Alright, that's no good. So, let's come in here and let us add a plane in this environment. So I'll right click and I'll say create 3D object plane, and I will grow the plane with the scale tool, right, and continue to grow the plane and move the plane and rotate the plane, and let's move that plane up and right in and see if that makes a difference. So this has a mesh collider that's already built in, and maybe that's what's lacking here. It needs a mesh collider. Add a component, physics, mesh collider. Let's try that actually. Maybe we won't need this plane, but the plane has one, and if we fall through, we should land on the plane, which I'll keep underneath. But let me try this instead. So it must be a mesh collider. Somehow I've messed up. Let's try it. This could be very interesting. Alright, what's happening? Alright, it says complete. We go back to Alt space, we re-enter. Okay, but the mesh collider on the plane worked. It's just up there. If I fly now, my character has to fly, then you'll see that I can go up in the air. There's the greenhouse. Come on. And then when I look down, let's keep going up. There we go. There's my terrain. But the mesh collider didn't work by putting it on that. So it's only what's down there. That worked, because when I turn off flying, and you'll see again if I go up, way up in the air, I'm looking down. Let's see what happens. I beam myself down and I end up down here. And even if I go up to here, it looks like there's no collision. You would think, yeah, it doesn't, there's no collision here, it's just taking me down to the world below, which is rather disappointing, because that means I need to bring this up to here, and I'm still going to fall through that terrain. And yet this mesh collider is what works on here. Now for this, I can try to get rid of this box collider. And let me keep the rigid body. Did I put a rigid body on the greenhouse? Yeah, I did. So you'd think it would work. Use gravity. Is kinematic. I don't know what all those things really mean. But here I have to add a component and then put a mesh collider. Because that's the only thing I can see that's the same between this and this now. So maybe now. Hit the 21 necessary seconds. And alright, let's try it again. General, re-enter. Let's hope that Mesh Collider here works. Well, what do you know? Oops, nope. I must still be in fly mode. Yeah, it's taking me under the world. So no matter what I do, although it looks like I'm not on fly. Am I? No, I am on fly. I must be on fly. Because if I turn off fly, I fall straight through the world. And only when I have fly on can I move. Which really, really sucks. So why is this not letting me use this terrain? And the greenhouse is gone. I think the greenhouse fell through the floor. Because I don't know where the greenhouse went. The greenhouse ain't there anymore. So something I did got messed up. I shouldn't have put the rigid body in the greenhouse, should I have? But this is like totally weird. So this also has a rigid body. Maybe I should get rid of the rigid body here so I can isolate things. And I want to put on the terrain. I have a mesh collider on the terrain. Oh, this is about the last experiment I'm going to do. But as you can see, it's quite a mess. Build and upload. If I make it convex, that may help. I'm going to try that. No idea if it's going to work. I can't really tell what the difference is. I guess I've only ever done a plane not a terrain. So I think that's part of the problem. I'm going to have to learn how to do a terrain with this. General input, turn off line. General re-enter. Come on, space. You can do this. Oh, and I fell. Oh, but look at that. I'm actually walking on the ground. Hey. Is that because... Yeah. Oh my. Hey. It actually works. Because I made it convex, I guess. Now the only thing I have to do now is get this greenhouse to do its thing. So I think I can lift this up now. I've got that default down there. But the greenhouse needs to sit down on the landscape like we had it. And that should do it, but I think the greenhouse probably should have a physics. It should have a rigid body in its form that uses gravity so it falls to the ground. And then let's try this. We may have something now. What did I do? I put a I used convex. That's what I did. Let it do its thing. So we don't want this anymore. This should fall down, and I have to go back in and re-enter now. Re-enter the space. Yeah. We fall and boom, we land on the landscape, which is great. Now where's our greenhouse? Oh, our greenhouse probably fell through the floor because it is using gravity. Oh, yep, our greenhouse is gone. Should be there. Alright, we're so close. So maybe the greenhouse shouldn't have a rigid body. Let's try it now. Shame though, because I think the greenhouse should be made so that it could be an object and fall. But we're going to find out in a moment. You can see how long things take. There's our greenhouse. Okay. So the greenhouse is there for the tomatoes. And yeah, and the other thing, then you can come in here and you can go to the world editor and you can start building things up by going to kits and finding if there's any fruits and vegetables, nature plants, nature trees, nature props, pirates. I wish somebody would make some vegetables. Town environment, town props, town vehicles. So there aren't any, doesn't seem like there's any bush, driveway, garden, grass, plant, road, sidewalk. This is a very kludgy way to create kits. They're not really good. City props, nature effects, nature rocks, plants, nature props, bricks, campfire, pillars, walls, a lot there. Nature, plants, bushes, mushrooms, plants, flowers, mushrooms, no fruit though. I mean, you can drag this out there and put some plants in, but yeah, I mean, so much for that. And then you have a plant that you can find, that's the prop that you can start populating. So that's about it. At least now we know a few things, and we'll get back to it and try to do another tutorial that may be more successful and smoother. Now that we know some things. Okay. I'm going to quit this and say goodbye. Catch you later. Auf Wiedersehen.